All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Nicholas Houlson. I work as a digital navigator for Open Door Learning Center with Literacy Minnesota. I'm presenting today with Leah Hauge. Yes.
You said it right.
Yeah.
Nice job. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. My name is Leah. I am the Northstar Curriculum Manager, working with our Northstar team at Literacy Minnesota, and I'm happy to be with you today.
And we will be presenting, as the title says, several resources for supporting beginning English language learners on their digital literacy journey. These resources cover different routines, at least two curriculum resources, and other tips and tricks to help get people vocabulary, grammar, and practical skills about digital literacy or the computer, the scary device itself. All right, I'm going to go forward. Oh my, it's us. Was
Yes,
this slide you or me? Sorry.
I can talk about this one. So, at the end of our session today, we hope that you will be able to list the benefits of two digital literacy curriculum resources that are free and you can access at any time after the session. And then we'll also hope that you'll be able to navigate resources for digital routines. That's another free resource we're going to share today. And then explain the new North Star assessment and standards that we will be talking about today as well.
All right. I'm sorry, Leah, I cut you off.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
As a warm up, just so that we can see who's joining us, we've shared a little bit about ourselves. Tell us a little bit about you. What brought you to this session? What level do you teach? And maybe how you're currently integrating digital literacy in your instruction. You could just put like just a phrase about how you're using digital literacy, like typing practice or
Yeah.
checking email, something like that.
Or
So we'll
feel
give
free to
you a minute.
say, I'm not using digital literacy
Yeah,
and I'm wondering how.
totally.
Uh, Eitan Feldman is the coordinator at Recite. Eitan uses digital literacy to help keep students who are on our wait lists engaged.
Great. Hi, Kate. You're in the right place. We will definitely be sharing resources.
Ryan and Kate co-teach together.
Nice.
As Leah said, we hope to leave you with several plans for a routine and several resources or content with which to slot into those routines. First
Nice.
hour every Wednesday.
Great to hear about ways or time frames that people are integrating digital literacy specifically in their EL classes. And yeah, we'll talk through resources and Nick will be sharing how he has used them too. All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started because it sounds like everyone is excited to get resources today. All right, this is our agenda. Just want to be clear about what we're going to be doing. Nick's going to talk about the two curriculum resources first. That is DART and ELDES. And then you'll have a breakout room, so you'll have some time to explore those resources briefly or just make sure that you're able to get to them and check them out a little bit. And then I will share the digital routines and also the new North Star resources, and you'll have another little breakout room. And for each resource, our goal is to talk about what it is, where you can find it, and how you might get started. And then we'll do a short wrap up. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. I'll hand it over to you, Nick.
All right, let's begin at the basics of digital literacy. Even we're using a computer. We'll be throwing this term around a lot, and it behooves us to take a look and ask, what is it? What do we mean when we say digital literacy? We have a quote up here with a technical definition about how digital literacy is about ability and knowledges and how there's skills that we break down. Later, Leah will be breaking down the standards and how we talk about this in that kind of formalized theoretical sense. What standards do we use to measure and gauge this? But the thing I really want to emphasize here at the basics of digital literacy is just like with pen and paper literacy, it's more than just being able to know which words are what. With normal literacy, you have to know what direction words are written. You have to recognize when something is telling you information, when something is there for decoration or flavor. These all have parallels in digital literacy, in being able to tell from things such as what are common symbols, what do those use, to being able to tell different parts of websites apart, different computers, even different analog buttons on the keyboard. How do those work? Where should my hands go on the keyboard? All this and more we've packaged under this label, digital literacy. And it covers things from very basic computer skills, turning things on and off, to, I'm going to use the term advanced, but really this is all foundational, to being able to exhibit information literacy or being able to navigate basic and common programs like an internet browser or an online meeting suite like what we're using now. So that and more is kind of what I want you to have in your head as we keep on talking about digital literacy, turning this from a mysterious black box into something that people can look at and say, I know what it does. It was made by people and it can be controlled by people, including myself. All right, I'm going to pass the baton back to Leah. Whoops. There we go.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so digital literacy has so many different components. So how do we break those apart and know where to begin? In Minnesota, we have our three sets of standards. And in order to best serve our learners, we want to be sure that we're incorporating and integrating all of those three sets of standards. But of course, that's easier said than done, oftentimes. And so we know that there's our academic skills with our CCRS, and then the soft skills with the Transitions Integration Framework, TIF, and then, of course, our digital skills with the Northstar standards. And we hear from teachers a lot that, and we know that there are many resources out there that integrate those core content skills like reading, math, and writing, and the soft skills like problem solving, critical thinking, and interpersonal, but less resources for that digital literacy piece and how you integrate that into your language instruction. So that's why we're specifically calling out these resources today. And
Yeah, some
this,
common reasons.
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you go ahead, Nick. Nick's going to start us off talking about these.
And if you needed more convincing, some other reasons to integrate digital literacy skills, we have them listed by these categories: access to information services, skill development for employment, and civic engagement. All three of the components that I'll be talking about can help better your students' self of agency, such as access to information. They can interact with either county materials to access their benefits. They can interact with resources that you want them to use in the classroom. A GED or college prep class, for example, is greatly empowered by having its students know how to use a library and check out test preparatory resources, or even just for their own personal life. If somebody is like, I would really like to relax in my time off and watch Netflix, how do I get that? How do I understand subscriptions? Uh, Access to information includes everything from things that are rather cut and dry, like doing taxes, to things that people would like for their for fun, such as just browsing Wikipedia and falling down a rabbit hole. Skill development and employment, I think, is a little self-explanatory, but that's the bread and butter. This is the big shiny deal. When a lot of students talk to me about what they would like to do on the computer, either it's things like accessing services like shopping or banking, or it's being hired for their computer skills. We had one advanced student at Open Door, for example, who was already fairly along with digital literacy. He had a mastery of the basics, but he really wanted to know what makes a computer, what makes knowledge about computers valuable for work. And so he went through Northstar and he learned the basics of how to talk about computers. Northstar really helped him communicate about computers and digital literacy. And now he is studying how to learn code like Python. And that's an example of somebody, that's a very meteoric example of somebody building on basics and developing themselves into to a point where they're probably know more about computers than me, for sure. And finally, civic engagement, which includes interaction with government, being able to take care of your own information, but also, from my perspective, kind of an overlap with being able to exert your own agency, being able to do things like pay a parking ticket or contest a parking ticket, being able to advocate for yourself in a customer support forum, and being able to identify if your phone says there's a guy calling you and his name is scam likely, being able to figure out what that guy wants and being able to hang up on it. These other two categories, Leah will go over.
Yeah, I got a call from Scam Likely today, actually. Um, building digital resilience. All of this is to say that we want our learners to build that digital resilience piece or their ability to use the skills that they've built through foundational digital literacy to transfer to an unfamiliar circumstance and navigate it accurately and for the purpose to meet their goal and being confident and capable to do that. And then, of course, that can lead to helping to build language skills because learners can build their digital resilience to access apps or new tools, especially on smartphones, to build and to continue to build their language skills.
And very briefly, I'm going to add on rider to that. The change in a student's mentality when they go from just saying computer or that thing or phone to something more specific, like I can open Safari on my iPhone. I can find a PDF on my computer. Those things just help with more agency. It's part of their English language learning journey. And it's definitely what we as ABE educators love to see. Oops, I muted myself. So, our first resource is the DART curriculum. Before I go on, has anybody heard? So, you might have attended a talk that me and Leah did previously or that I did. Has anybody heard of this curriculum, this resource before? One, yes. Perhaps many no's. One, possibly. All right. This resource, DART, is an acronym. The full name stands for Digital Access and Resilience in Texas. It was developed for in workplace classes at Tyson Foods. It was developed from Northstar standards. It was adapted to a lower ESL context, specifically National Reporting Standards 1 to 3. At our program, we call that beginning lit, people who might have no familiarity with a written language at all. In your own program, I'm sorry, in our program, NRS 1 to 3 ranges from beginning lit, people who might have no familiarity in a written language, they have no literacy skills, to high beginning, low intermediate. At your own program, the terms might be slightly different. Technically, I'm not teaching Dart. I'm not teaching digital access and resilience in Texas. I'm teaching DARM, digital access and resilience in Minnesota. But DARM doesn't tend to roll off the tongue as well as Dart, and I'll continue to refer to it by its main acronym. Where do you find Dart? You can find it at its website. We'll be adding this link in the chat for those who want to take a look at it. And we'll also be including these links at the end of this PowerPoint if you would ever like, or the end of this slide, if you would ever like to look at it for yourself. It's online, it's free. The whole thing is available broken down lesson by lesson or as one big PDF. How to start Dart. Before you begin, Dart is ultimately a supplementary curriculum, or just because it's written down, I mean, it doesn't mean that it's like a plug and play resource. Like any resource, it'll take some time to adapt to your context. So you should ask yourself, how will I use it? Am I going to use it like a tutor? Am I going to teach it, or is a volunteer going to sit down with the student and take a dedicated look at the materials? Are you going to use it as an instructor? Are you teaching a digital literacy skills class? Are you using it to supplement an English language class, perhaps as part of a push-in, or maybe one of your class days is dedicated to basic computer skills? My program implemented a computer class. We had it about 2 days a week on Monday and Thursday, and it was in what I call our supplementary programming block. Our ESL block is from 6 to 8 p.m., and we put Dart in the 2-hour time slot before that, 4 to 6, in hopes of capturing early comers and providing additional content, additional courses. With Dart, you'll have to build your lessons. Here's an example of a slide I used to teach safe and unsafe. This was part of a lesson about security. Because Dart targets the early ESL language learner, the early English language learner, you'll find yourself spending a lot of time teaching vocabulary. Earlier on, can you please share the link to this? Yes. Can we please have the link to Dart go out in chat?
Yeah, we will share it. Thanks, Rob, in the breakout coming up in just a minute.
Yeah.
Few minutes.
So I often had to spend a lot of time teaching vocabulary. That's my recommendation to teach when you're teaching this curriculum. At first, I was really I only had 2 days of class, and I was trying really hard to get through like sometimes about 10 or 12 vocab words a day. And I had to reel that back and take my time. My beginner level students were a little overloaded. And so I had to tone it down to maybe about 5 a day, or even 2 or 3 if they were particularly difficult concepts. Here I've illustrated safe and unsafe as part of preparing the ground to talk about security, including things like passwords. The Dart curriculum was written with Windows 10 in mind, or Windows 11 is what this screenshot is. And my program uses Chromebooks, so I had to adapt a lot of the materials to a Chrome-specific context. If you choose to use Dart, you should feel free to tailor it to whatever devices you're using in your situation. For example, if you would, instead of focusing on a traditional laptop, want to focus on a phone, you would probably replace this assignment with a phone background and phone specific vocabulary. You might be able to ignore things like launcher, like Chrome icon or Windows, or this Windows specific stuff. And if you were focusing on Apple products, would include terms like Finder or iPhone settings. Dart comes with some recommendations, some guesstimates as to how long it will teach. We have my beginners, my students are in this lower part of the bracket. These are estimates for how long people will take. I'm down here. And one thing I had to learn while I was teaching Dart is that indeed I had to review a lot of these terms with students. I had to make sure to keep on reviewing until I was sure that they were passing their comprehension checks. Uh, in my mind, you can never kind of spend too much time covering this stuff for beginner level learners, NRS 0 to 2, as Dart defines it. People at other levels, people with more familiarity with the English language or literacy rates, they might not need as much repetition. And these are, again, very rough time estimates. Some other tips and tricks for Dart. Physical props. I got this from Katrina Benson of Neighborhood House. It lets us put broken tech to good use. Things like letting students get their hands on a computer. Dart has a lot of physical printouts for keyboards, but nothing beats just actually letting your hands touch a keyboard. And we have a bunch of them that aren't particularly plugged into a computer, so it was good to use those or to use the actual devices from lab. The other major tip from Grace and Betts of Lindale Neighborhood Association, this term translanguaging. Long story short, let people translate things in their language and then practice out the English word. This was really useful when I had classes that were full of multiple languages. The majority of my students spoke Somali, but we would have a strong minority of Spanish speakers. And it was useful to get them to think about this in their own language. If there was a metaphor, like the word internet is based on the English word net, to get them to think about the net shape and what that metaphor means, why we use the word internet or network. It really got the students engaged, and they felt a lot of ownership with the class. What were some outcomes with Dart? What did we do this all for? Well, the number one was that students were mystified. The biggest thing that we had, and I'd be curious to hear from the chat. The biggest thing that we had was students getting increased familiarity with devices. The number one was learning the difference between a username and a password. The students don't have to be masters, they still frequently mix the two up, but they know that the concepts are out there and they're a lot better at typing. We have a lot less of people just staring at a device in computer lab and just saying, "What do I do?" Again, that loss of agency is very disheartening. And it was great. Students who attended Dart regularly were at least making stabs. They were at least trying something. They were trying to type in passwords and they were trying to figure out which one was username. And that led to a lot of gains. In turn, that leads to a better distance learning experience. I wrote DL. I should have written distance learning or digital education. By that, I mean using an English language learning platform. On something like MobiMax, if you're familiar, Duolingo is another common one. The better DL experience really paid dividends. Our computer labs are a lot stronger. Our students are more willing to try learning English on the computer. They're very excited by it. This chance to both practice English and turn a machine that was once mysterious into something that they know and can work. And all of these hit on that third point, which is something I've been harping on: increased autonomy, increased independence. I love to see this as an ABE instructor, an ESL ABE instructor. I love to see it when my students are able to just make a platform work for them. All right, I'm going to barrel ahead. So that was Dart. And for years, I want to say ever since 2019, Dart was the leading ESL digital literacy curriculum. It was one of the only ones in the field. And recently, very recently, fresh off the presses, Minnesota developed a second one. This is the English Learner Digital Essential Skills, or ELDES for short. ELDES is brand spanking new. It's from the Lyndale Neighborhood Association. It's a huge piece of work. It's got a ton of stuff going over from the very basics to the end of the basics. So things like familiarizing with your device, learning how to type, going online. It's divided across these 7 units. Full disclosure, I have not had a chance to really try this curriculum out in the classroom. What I have done is taken bits and pieces, taken individual assignments, and paired them with Dart. For example, I first became aware of this program, aware of this curriculum, when I was teaching about the beginnings of web browsers. So my familiarity with ELDES is taking assignments from lesson 1 and complementing them with Dart. Like Dart, ELDES is completely free, located at this website. We'll be sharing out those links during the breakout. Please give it a look. Now, it's a lot. It's about 300 pages, so we don't expect you to integrate all of it, but to at least look at the unit list. Some core features I really feel enthusiastic about is ELDES partnered with somebody in Somalia, another organization, to produce Somali language video series. So the ELDES content has been digitized and featured in a foreign language. That's great. Gee, only 300, somebody says. I know. Well, don't worry. The other 700 pages are probably coming. If they ever release a step 2 featuring word processing or PowerPoints. But yeah, ELDES very impressively, they partnered with a Somali language organization in Africa, in Somalia. And that video series is available on YouTube. ELDES features all the links to it. It is heavily scripted for volunteers. There's a lot to do. You can, in that way, it's a little plug and play where you can orient a volunteer on ELDES and the script can help carry them through or give some starting points. And I think that's it. So these are some great resources. We're going to shuffle on to our next breakout room. I want you to take a look at probably just the contents of these two, because there's going to be a lot of stuff. I don't expect you to familiarize yourself with the whole thing. And please consider these questions. All right, I'll pass the baton to our capable tech hosts who will be sorting you into breakout rooms.
Yeah, and maybe we can go for about 5 minutes, Rob.
Yep, 5 minutes, and there'll be
Okay.
a 1-minute countdown for 4 minutes with a 1-minute countdown.
Thank you.
Hey Rob, just so you know, room 4 has both me and Nick and only Aton. Should we move somebody else to room 4? And then we should probably pause the recording for the breakout rooms too.
All right, welcome back. I hope your discussions were fruitful. Let's go back to our Google slide. Welcome to my desktop. And Leah, take it away.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope you had some rich discussions, and we will definitely open it up for questions and some reflections after I share about the next 2 resources. So I will talk first about the routines to build digital skills in EL Classrooms. Why did we create this resource? So as I mentioned, I work with our Northstar team to create resources and curriculum. And if you're familiar with our Northstar curriculum, it's written at an intermediate level. And so many of our sites and teachers wanted a resource that could serve learners at a little bit of a lower level and help them to build those, thank you, help them to build those foundational digital literacy skills. And the two curriculum resources that Nick spoke about before too are also scaffolds up to that Northstar curriculum. So we created some routines. So what these are free, customizable, kind of like mini lessons that are built in Google Slides. And there's also a teacher guide that explains more about ways that you might use them and is a great place to launch into the resources and find ones that would work best for your class. And then they also support English language learning, vocabulary development, as well as other college and career readiness skills. And they support that opportunity for learners to build their digital resilience. So in incorporating the routines, we really wanted to be intentional about sources that you could use again and again and again, recognizing that learners really need that opportunity to practice most skills or practice opening a website or navigating a website. All of those really beginning fundamental foundational skills so they can build their confidence to do more. So I'll show you what this resource is composed of. So like I said, there are lessons that are in Google Slides, and when you open those resources, they instantly create your own copy of it. So you're able to customize it and make it work for your learners, which is something that had been a request from teachers. That way you're able to incorporate, maybe if there's a website that your students have to access every day, you can just make it your own. There are also self-assessment rubrics. So these are I can activities where learners can look at the objectives, the simple statements that are in those lessons, and do some self-assessment. And then you can also assess the skills that they are working towards and building. And then these routines also scaffold, as I said before, to the Northstar digital literacy curriculum and also intersect with our English Unlocked curriculum. So that is our English language learning curriculum that was published through Literacy Minnesota. And we've given ideas of ways that you can integrate those digital skills into those lessons too, but you do not have to use Northstar curriculum or the English Unlocked curriculum to use these routines. You can use them with any curriculum in any class. So let's look at the mini lessons or those Google Slide decks that are included. These are the topics, the routines that you can practice with learners. And I won't read them all. I'll just let you look at them. But right now we are about to publish 4 more routines for using email skills. And so those help learners to practice how to send emails, how to sign into email, identifying parts of an email, and then of course, replying to emails. We really tried to break it down to the beginning of these skill groups. So I will show you an example of what the slide decks look like. And this is just one small piece of the mouse routines digital routine. And this example focuses on building mouse skills, including identifying mouse shapes and their meaning and mouse actions and movements, and what happens when you're using. This is really meant to be on a laptop or a computer, not a phone. And so let's look at the next slide, Nick. This shows what the lessons look like. So there's teacher instructions for each slide, and we just put those in the notes of the Google slide deck. So all of your teacher instructions are just there in notes for you. So it will start here. The teacher is instructing and modeling what about hover. So this mouse action is only about hovering. And letting learners know that when you hover, you'll see the mouse pointer change into a hand. And then of course, that's something you could model in real time, projecting your screen. And then the lessons all have routine practice around I do. So modeling, the instructor models, we do, learners practice together, and then you do, learners model their mastery of the skill in their own, and breaks it down for teachers to show those visuals. So you don't have to create all this stuff. It's created for you, but you can adapt it and change it, like I said, to make it your own. So here, learners, the teacher is still modeling and saying, you know, showing another example of the mouse pointer changing. And then on the next slide, there's an activity where learners navigate to a web page and then they hover over a button. And then they look for the mouse shape to change. And that's all they're doing. So it's very, very small activity, and all of the routines are like that, and then they build up to maybe a more complex task. And then finally, on the next slide, they're doing it on their own. So there's that independent practice. And as I
Yeah.
mentioned, sorry, yeah, Nick.
Oh, no, and just briefly chime in, and I haven't used the specific routine, but I've done routines like it, and one which Leah might talk about, involving typing or practicing, and students really respond well to a strong routine setup. It's something that's reliable, repeatable. When they know how to do it, it builds confidence. And with computers, I was guilty of kind of underestimating how much muscle memory would play into cognitive memory. So learning how to do something like this, hovering, and just getting used to touching the mouse was extremely useful.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. That's very true. It's really nice, I think, with the routines, because they have that sequence that's built in there for you, then that predictability, both as an instructor, it makes it easier for you. And like you said, Nick, it really helps learners know what they can expect when they're doing that digital literacy routine practice. So the core of all of the routines, where you want to start, is on the next slide, which is the the teacher guide for the routines. And this is a very, very short guide, but that's where you'll start, and then you can find all those things that I just talked about, all those topics. And within the teacher guide on the next slide, you will see we're calling these topic tables. So for each of those 3 topics, basic computer skills, internet basics, and using email, there's a topic table that looks like this with links. And it shows the standards that are involved, and then the routine links to those Google slide decks, and then also where it intersects with the English Unlocked curriculum if you're interested in that. And then where you can scaffold up to those Northstar lesson plans when learners are ready. And at the top of that launch page of that topic table, there is the rubric that you can look at if that's helpful. And that's editable too. So if you want to change the rubric and add additional skills, maybe some language skills you're working on in your classroom, you could do that as well. All right, I'm going to move on and talk about the next resource, and then you will have some time to explore these. So the next thing I'll talk about is our new Northstar smartphone keyboard basics and logging in assessment and set of standards. So this was created, if you're familiar with Northstar, kind of our core content module is our basic computer skills topic. That is where a lot of learners begin their journey with Northstar, either in instruction or assessment, both. And so we wanted to create a precursor or a foundational pre-assessment for that topic that helped to identify those basic foundational skills that learners need in order to do kind of the thing that we all have to do all the time, which is use our smartphones to log into stuff. And we know that that is definitely most learners have access to a phone, and most people have to do that for work or many, many, many other purposes. So it's designed specifically for beginners. We brought the language down as much as we possibly could in this topic. It measures those basic smartphone skills and, of course, supports digital skill building up to those other topics. And Rachel, yay, I'm glad you're excited. Me too. What does it include? It is a set of standards, and you can definitely explore those in a minute, but I'll just give an overarching viewpoint of the standards, which is that they help learners to demonstrate being able to navigate a smartphone keyboard so that they can type usernames and passwords accurately, and then also recognizing the process to log in. It's an interactive Northstar assessment, just like all of our others. I just picked one slide to show you there. And how can you use it as a pretest? We always recommend with Northstar assessments to have learners use them as a pretest so that you can see at the end of their assessment, the standards that they need to work on. And then, of course, post instruction, give them the test again, and they can see how they did, and so can you. And then it's important to note that this assessment and these standards also connect back to that DART curriculum that Nick was speaking about earlier. So once you identify the areas that students need to work in, you can look at some of these other resources like the routines, the DART curriculum, and ELDES, I'm sure, to find those instructional materials that you want to support learners with. And we are not currently, Rob just asked a question in the chat about curriculum and ENSL module for this topic. Northstar is not currently working on that because there are these other resources and DART is already out there, but we have considered it, and if people keep asking for it, maybe we will in the future, but not as of now.
Yeah, very briefly, another little joiner from me. One way that I've used this and other Northstar resources, even for just a pretest, is listening comprehension. I have a lot of students who, when I give the DART assignment, when I give a DART worksheet, they can do the worksheet no problem because they've learned that routine. But then I begin to want them to apply things outside of class. So they might know in class when I say, open your phone, find WhatsApp. That is a routine. They know it very well. But when they take this and the Northstar person, the Northstar recording asks the same question in a different way, that's a good way to check listening comprehension and sometimes point out to students, oh, they're asking the same thing. Are you sure you know this? Or did you just memorize what the teacher sounds like? So it's a way to help get students engaged and realize they kind of need to start stretching their cognitive muscles.
Yeah. All right. We're going to send you into another breakout room so you can check out these resources. I will just put these instructions in the chat. Oops. Why isn't letting me?
I got them for you.
Oh, thank you. For some reason, I'm having a digital issue. It's not letting me put it in the chat.
That's why I'm here.
Thanks, Rob.
So breakout room's 5 minutes again?
Yeah, sounds good.
And I will
See y'all in a
stop
bit.
recording.
All right, welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone.
We go to the next slide.
Yeah. So we don't have much time left, but we hope that you had some great discussions and had a little bit of time to crack open some of the resources and start to think about how at least what you might look into next. So if you want to share in the chat what resource you're most interested in exploring more and why, and what you're going to dig into after the session. Or if you have any questions for Nick and I too.
Question from, and I'm sorry, Iyun or Ayun? Do you do in-class visit or training? I know the DL statewide team will do trainings and professional development about platforms. And that might be a question for my immediate
We
supervisor,
can do
Susan.
on-site, on-request trainings to programs. We generally ask that you have 10 people to attend for us to come out to your program. But yeah, it isn't just restricted to distance learning stuff. We can train on digital literacy topics too.
Yeah, and at
And
the
it
very
could be
least,
a mix of staff and volunteers. If you don't have 10 staff members, if you've got a few volunteers who want to attend, that works too.
and at the very least, I would be delighted to either meet with anybody or invite them into a classroom to observe how I teach the class. You can look at me and see how I do it, and then you can go to Katrina Benson's class and see how somebody does it correctly. Dart is currently paused right now, but we hope to resume the class within a few months. Well, Susan, I have to give them the full range of experience between me and Katrina and whoever so else is involved.
Nick, you always undersell
Yeah.
yourself. You have to find your confidence.
Yeah. Let's double check chat. Eldest looks great. I think so too. And as the field of teaching digital literacy, as this subgenre of ESL instruction improves, I'm looking forward to see more people use ELDES, including myself. All right.
Thank you everyone so much for your time today. And we hope you find some good resources from what we shared today.
All right, then I think I can stop the recording.